This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello. This is Fake the Nation, a show that talks about the news, but in a way that helps you suppress your mental and emotional hurling. I am your host, Negin Farsad, and as we leap into the abyss of a second Trump administration, I'm getting my holy fuck, why did he say that energy under control. Today, we'll talk about some Trump stuff, but we'll also talk about mental health tourism, a thing that may be the result of Trump stuff. Sadly, we'll talk about the LA fires, and finally, Mark Zuckerberg thinks corporations should embrace masculine energy the way he embraces looking like a middle-aged dad who just discovered dubstep. Today, I'm joined, oh my gosh, by such a utterly delightful panel who have no idea what is about to hit you because we have joining us again. She's a veteran on the show. She's a crowd favorite. She's host and creator of the literary podcast, The Stacks, and all of the books behind her, if you're watching on YouTube, are real. It is Traci Thomas. Hey, Traci.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We are also joined by a writer, a comedian. I had the pleasure of seeing her live, and this is where you have my heart. Is if you perform live and make me laugh, oh my God! And you should seek her out for this reason alone. It is the incredible Sarah Cooper. Hey, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excited to be here for the first time.
For the first time.
Yes.
So you're such a natural fit. Here we go. Oh, before we get into it, I just want to remind listeners, you can go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show. It's a new year, and why don't you just take on another subscription? You know what I mean?
No one can have too many. Yeah.
You can't have too many. Everybody loves them. So go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show for as little as $4 a month. You actually get bonus episodes of the show. They're really fun and ridiculous and sometimes just purely insightful.
And you share like feet pics too, right? Is that true?
Just all of my feet. Just all of the feet that I have pics. All right, let's get into it, you guys, with topic number 1. There's a new term in culture, so let's all get in line. It's called mental health tourism. Now, one might reasonably believe that all tourism is for mental health and that adding the zingy social media name is unnecessary. Nevertheless, let's get into it. Singapore is actually developing these mental health gardens in an effort to become the world's top wellness destination. What do you think of the concept of of mental health tourism and of Singapore trying to take the top spot? Traci, what do you think?
I mean, good. I don't know. I don't, is there something that I'm supposed to hate here? I feel like usually I can tell when I'm supposed to hate something. I don't have a strong opinion. The article we read about it made it sound like it was helping people. I think if people want to go on you can go to Turkey if you're a man to get like a full hair transplant situation. You can go to South Korea to do a full, facial skin plastic surgery situation. So if you want to go to Singapore to do a full, let me get my shit together situation, I think that's great. And the article said it was focused on children with autism and adults with dementia. So they're like clearly trying to do something a little bit more direct than just like mental health. The name suggests.
It's like, for like elderly people, there's like these memory triggers of their youth that's supposed to be good for them. There's people, stuff for the neurodivergent. They have unique features, including ultraviolet light mazes. Confidence building lookouts, memory triggering signage, as I mentioned, immune boosting horticulture zones, and wheelchair obstacle courses. Sarah, are you rushing to Singapore to treat yourself?
I am not, and I'll be honest, I did not read the article. I just saw the headline, and when I saw mental health tourism, I thought, oh, I do that every day. I close my eyes and I pretend I'm somewhere else. I feel like that is what mental health tourism should be, because that's all we can afford. We can't afford to go to Singapore. We can only afford to pretend that we are in Singapore. I mean, I feel like when you meditate and you pretend you're somewhere else, like that's probably
mental health. That's mental health tourism.
That's what it is. I mean, this just feels like Singapore. I can't. Who is going to, am I? No, I would love to go to Singapore. I think, I don't even know. I went to a movie on Friday and I didn't even like being that far out of my apartment. So I don't know. I'm not really into leaving my apartment. I don't know.
I mean, okay, one thing I will say about Singapore in particular, having never been, is it seems like quite urban, and it just feels a little out of the ordinary to me that a place that's that urban would try and lure people in big, like as a wellness place, like Tulum or whatever, the beaches of Costa Rica, all those places I can imagine being like, yeah, we're a mental health tourism spot. But
Yeah.
Singapore seems just a little, it's like the scions of Asian industry and this really lovely garden where you could put your hand in some dirt and feel
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it
I
just
guess
feels strange.
it seems like each person has their own idea of what calms them and what soothes them. Like
Mhm.
I had a friend who went to, you can go to a cave somewhere in like Colorado and it's like no light for like, I don't know, a month or something, or like two
What?
weeks. Yeah.
What?
So it's completely, you're depriving yourself of any kind of like,
That sounds actually
sensory,
sure.
whatever.
Okay.
No
And
thanks.
I know it sounds like claustrophobic to me, but apparently it's supposed to be great. Like, I don't know.
Okay, that actually just gave me like heart palpitations.
Yeah.
I one thing that I will say about it, it just makes Singapore sound like a nice place to live, and instead of like a place to visit, you know what I mean? Because it's like I would love to have a sensory garden or a mental health garden. By the way, I think you could though every park in New York City is also like a mental health park.
No.
You know what I mean?
Some of them
No.
are.
Because there's a lot of mental health people who
Yeah.
need mental health hanging out in them. Is that why? It's like,
Tracy, you don't live in New York City. What are you talking about?
I used to live in New York for 8 years.
Okay.
And some of those parks are not where I'm going to calm down and feel the vibes. I'm going to go inside.
As a very strong park supporter,
I love
and
a park, but I don't
listeners
know
know
that a New
that
York
I get
City
my hands
park.
dirty at Tompkins Square Park as a founding member of the Friends of Tompkins Square Park.
I mean, I
Oh.
love this for you.
You like one of the mental health benefits that we provide is for volunteers to come and put their hands in the dirt and do the thing that Singapore has created a weird special area for you to do. Like we're doing that in the East Village of New York City. You can come and put your hands in the dirt, and also meet people and chat with them, and it's like great for your mental health. There, mental health tourism done.
Dirt. You're putting hands in.
You're offering
Well,
dirt. You're
that's
offering
one-
horticulture. You got to at
Yeah.
least name it better than dirt.
Sorry,
At least call
I
it
know,
soil.
I know.
I
But
don't know.
literally, that's one of the things Singapore that's like in their brochure. So if they can make it a big, headline, so can I here in Manhattan.
Oh, so
Make it
so
to the
this is
Chamber of
all like
Commerce.
this is you just trying to get people to come to your park to do this was all a ruse.
Just for labor, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think, I mean, it obviously there's a ton of research about going on vacation. Forget if you're going to a mental health destination, but going on vacation generally is supposed to be good for you. There's tons of studies about it.
Really?
Going to apparently, according to an article I read in foxnews.com.
Okay, that's all right.
No, but it was based on a study that looked reputable. So I'll quote from it here. Apparently, going to new places elevates the body's metabolic rate, which may also trigger an adaptive immune system response, improving the body's ability to perceive and defend itself against external threats, and it makes you have more like self-defense, your self-defense system more resilient. So there's data apparently on but it makes sense. Every time you go on vacation, you feel better, right? Because you're just not working. I mean, that's, I think, what it comes down to.
So really, this is about not working. This isn't about
right.
going
like,
anywhere.
Could you have the Singapore effect just like
Anywhere.
in your apartment?
Yeah,
It's
staycation.
Yeah,
I went to Dublin a few years ago. I think that was the last trip I took was Dublin, and it was amazing. But I also was just like, I discovered walking tours. I never really was into walking tours before, but I realized the one thing I was missing before was I wasn't high. So this time I would take a gummy and I would go on a walking tour, and I was blown away by the information. I don't remember anything, but it was a lot of fun.
So it's, to me, it sounds like you elevated your body's metabolic rate.
I think I was elevating my metabolic rate.
All right, folks, let's move on. Before we cut to a little break here for our sponsors, I just wanted to address, there was like a mention on the podcast last week about soy and whether that or not that causes cancer, and none of us really knew, but someone mentioned it not really knowing, and one of our listeners wrote in, thank you so much, Noah Pramsma. He writes, I wanted to write in with an important fact check in regard to my area of professional expertise, nutrition. In last week's podcast, during the segment about the Surgeon General's alcohol warning, soy was mentioned as a food that increases the risk of breast cancer. In fact, it's just the opposite. Soy has had a lot of negative press. He goes on to say, though similar to estrogen in its structure, it's different enough that it actually has a suppressing effect on endogenous estrogen, and a preponderance of studies have confirmed its benefits for reducing breast cancer risk. Soy also doesn't have a feminizing effect on men, while we're on the topic, which I love that he threw that in because that was also a question and a thing that I've heard. Efforts like Let's Beat Breast Cancer, the Let's Beat Breast Cancer campaign, which is supported by a wide variety of experts, are working to educate the public about what they can do to reduce the risk of breast cancer. So if you want to learn more, check out the Let's Beat Breast Cancer campaign. I just Googled it, and the experts weigh in, and there's informationals and stuff like that. So there you go. That's the information about soy. I didn't want people to walk around being misinformed by Fake the Nation, though I think at the time we all said we didn't really know. All right. But now, thank you so much to the listener for clearing that up. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue. And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2. Okay, so if you're like me, you're utterly distracted by the LA wildfires. I'm constantly worried about my friends and family there. But I wanted to talk about just some aspects of it. First of all, I mean, the climate change portion of it. Apparently, the whipping back and forth of weather is a climate change phenomenon. Last year, it rained a ton, which created a lot of vegetation. Then this year, it didn't rain at all, which created a lot of dry conditions. And when the Santa Anas emerged, that's what made the area really ripe for fire. I guess my question for you guys is, like, no, the three of us do not live in Los Angeles.
I do.
Oh, you live in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Tracy, are you in Los Angeles right now?
Wait a second. I thought you lived in Atlanta. Did you live in Atlanta at some point?
Never.
Oh my God. What's my problem?
How many times has she been on the podcast?
Yeah. Negin doesn't care about me.
I said the same thing the last time Tracy was on. Okay. I need to somehow remove you in my Atlanta database. You somehow incorrectly got it today. Okay. So Tracy, the three of us, only 1/3 of us lives in Los Angeles. Now, so me and Sarah are viewing this from afar, and I'm wondering, and then you're on the inside, and then there's just 330 million other Americans. Do you feel like this is the straw that breaks the back on the climate change realities that we have to face? I mean, this sort of feels like a different level of urgency for me. I don't know. How does it feel to you, Tracy?
I think it really depends on which camel's back you're talking about, right? Like, are you talking about politicians? Are you talking about the incoming Trump administration? Are you talking about individuals who live in California? I mean, I have been very stressed and pressed about climate change for a while now. This did not change how I feel about the facts that climate change is extremely real, and California wildfires are a huge problem. I mean, it's become almost a season here. And what's been really upsetting about these fires, I think, and shocking, is that it's January. And usually, wildfire season in California, it used to be like October was sort of the end. I know when the Paradise fires happened, a few years back, that went into late November. And that was a huge, like, oh my God, I can't believe we're dealing with wildfires at Thanksgiving. And now we're dealing with this in January, which is just another sign of the fact that it's drier, it's hotter, it's pushing the season to be, year round. So I think, like, there are people who are going to deny climate change no matter what. I don't think anything could change that for them. There are people who have survived climate disasters who don't believe in climate change, you know, who've lost things, who've lost their homes in hurricanes or fires or floods or whatever. So I don't know that like looking for a straw to break a camel's back is necessarily indicative of anything. I think that's more just like entrenched beliefs politically and how you want to look at these things. But I do think that this has been a big eye opener for a lot of people who live in urban centers who feel like, oh, I live in LA, we're safe. Nothing's going to happen to LA, we're safe, you know, or nothing's going to happen to New York City, we're safe from climate change because we're in a big city. And I think for a lot of people in those kinds of places, this has been sort of a reminder that like, no, babe, you're not safe. Like this can happen literally anywhere. And that's the thing about climate change. It's not, it's global warming. It's not like outside of Los Angeles warming. It's in Los Angeles. It's in New York City. It can happen in all of these places.
Sarah, what does the coverage look like to you? And in terms of like also when we think about rebuilding and the money that takes and the political will, do you think we'll be summoning that will?
I don't know. I feel like Traci just has like a better perspective on this than I do because I have spoken to people who know people who've lost everything. There are people that they're okay, but they know people who've lost everything, and so it's just so traumatizing. And it's just I read somebody's comment about how when you lose everything, it's that trauma doesn't go away, and so I just feel like there's so much grief. There's so much compounded grief since the pandemic, pretty much. And it just seems like we can't get a break. And I was saying this to my mom of just like, I keep wanting things to go back to normal. And it seems like there is no more normal. We will never have a normal again. And that's really, it is. It's why it's,
You know, the other thing that and on top of that not being normal, I mean, there's pandemic and in climate change reasons that things are not normal the way we used to perceive them. But also it's like for LA in particular, we had strikes, like the industry was already like in arrears, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it just
Hollywood
feels
is,
like,
yeah.
there's the natural disasters and then there's like the man-made disasters of just like, labor negotiations, so
Right.
it's just been brutal, I feel like, for LA for very many years now. I don't know, Traci, does that feel
Yeah, I mean, I think Hollywood has been hit pretty hard, as most industries have, I think. Like, I think a lot about like restaurant workers as well, especially in a place like LA where we have so much tourism constantly. I think, it's been really hard on schools and teachers between COVID and now this, and families. I mean, not to make too minor of a big detail, but I've got small kids. I got a lot of friends who've got small kids who lost their homes. And this fire happened on the Tuesday after everyone went back to school. So a lot of families have been like with their kids, taking care of them over the holidays, like
for
really
weeks,
not able to prioritize other parts of their lives. They go to work on Monday, they go to work on Tuesday. People in the Palisades, these fires broke out at 11 a.m. A lot of people weren't even able to go home to evacuate, right? Like, because they were already at work, their kids are at school. I think like this is, as Sarah was saying, is going to be, it is extremely traumatizing for those of us who are here. And I think the trauma is, we don't even fully have a grasp on it. I was on a call last night actually with this great organization here in LA called LA Forward. They're sort of a political action campaign. They do a lot of work with unhoused and making policies around all sorts of things. And a councilman from Pasadena was on, which is the neighboring town to Altadena, where the Eaton fires were. And he was saying that Altadena is a town of 42,000 people. And as of last night, as of the 14th or whatever, they don't know how many structures were burned yet, but it's somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 in a town of 42,000 people. I mean, the scope of this is just like beyond.
Huge,
And
yeah.
I think it's pretty bad for Hollywood, but I think it's going to be pretty bad for everybody. I think like no one comes out of this in this area unscathed, untouched by it. And
I
it'll be
wanted to
interesting to
ask
see.
you about like I mean, I know it's like so soon to even be talking about an aftermath when it's still not done.
Yeah.
But one thing that we've talked about hurricanes on the show a lot, and rebuilding in hurricane zones and what that means. And it's interesting. Like I used to be, part of the group that was just like, well, we shouldn't be building in a place that's so prone to disaster. And then I learned about I think there's a town in Florida. There's a few towns in Florida that have new resilient codes. So all of their structures have to have a certain code, and it's more expensive, but it's way more hurricane resilient, and it ensures that these towns can survive. I think Boynton Beach is maybe the name of one of the towns. And so realizing that there's also like human ingenuity in the way we can handle rebuilding, sort of made me, I don't know, was inspiring to me as like, oh, we don't need to write off like large swaths of geography. We can, there's ways we can work with nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's just it's so frustrating when you have any kind of issue and a person's response is, well, you should have done this, or you shouldn't have been there. It's probably one of the worst things
Yeah.
to say to someone who's going through something.
Yeah.
And I hate when my mom does it to me, and I hate when anybody does it to anybody suffering.
Which is also, I mean, and I should point out that the Republicans have been particularly brutal in the last week, and their response has been so disgusting. They've just, Trump is talking about like, help coming with certain conditions, and all the Republicans are talking about conditions for recovery and all of this stuff, and it is just like the least helpful sounding. I mean, we'll see what happens when everyone's in place next week, but I don't know, Traci, just last thoughts on the hearing GOP remarks like that. Has it penetrated the Los Angeles population? Are you guys
I mean, it's a huge fuck you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's huge fuck you energy from us back to those people, I think. I mean, LA is, as everyone probably knows, one of our great blue bastions in this country. So, I mean, the Palisades is interesting because there is so much wealth there. There are a lot of people who are politically like lean red compared to the rest of greater Los Angeles. But even still, I think like it's pretty much like a huge fuck you. But I do want to say one thing about the rebuilding thing, because I think it's important. While yes, these fires have always been a threat to California, just, because of the climate here in general. The increase in climate change has made it less safe to be here, but unfortunately people were already here. It wasn't as if people came to LA like a month ago and were like, let's build in this fire zone. Like people have lived here for an extremely long time when it wasn't so dangerous. And so I think when we talk about these things about like, well, why were you living here? Why were you living where there's...
I didn't mean it that way.
No, I'm not saying that you do. I'm not saying you do. I'm actually making a different point, which is like when we're thinking about these disasters, we have to actually think about the impact that people have had, and that's why they are now unsafe. It is the climate change is what makes these places unsafe now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as if we had treated the globe with more care and had less carbon emissions and had done all of these things, it would still be safe enough to live in these places. And so when we rebuild, yes, there's opportunity to take architectural, climate focused architectural decisions to help. But this is a result of climate change. It is not a result of people making bad decisions when they were first like putting roots down here. And I do want to just suggest one book really, really quickly because I have to. It's called What If We Get This Right? It's by Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. And it's a collection of essays or interviews where she talks to different experts in climate related fields about what it looks like if we get climate change right. There's a great one where she's talking to a person whose whole job is about architecture and in the environment, what it looks like to source responsibly, what it looks like to build responsibly. There's one about Hollywood and what it looks like to make movies and TV shows that actually incorporate climate change in a real way. That's not a disaster, but it's like, hey, these two people met at a charging station, and like it's a rom-com about two people who met at their community garden and they were introduced by Negin when they were touching dirt. And so it's a
I
really
love that.
beautiful book. It's called What If We Get It Right? And I suggest it for basically everyone. And I really hope people will listen to it and take it seriously, because there's so many ways that we can get this right.
Yeah, and that's I love this is such an uplifting note to end that segment on, because there are I agree there's ways to get this right, and also Republicans, they're like, this was so mismanaged and these regulations were blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, who loves management and money for management is Democrats. So you are like making a complaint for a thing that turns you into a Democrat. Okay, I just want to point that out to our Republican friends, all of whom listen to the show, obviously. Let's quickly turn to Pete Hegseth. Yesterday was the congressional hearing for him. Immediately, the chairman of the committee introduced him with glowing recommendations. He does have a military service record. So they had a couple things to mention there. Basically, the Republicans signaled they are on his side. And then the first question that came from Democrat was Jack Reed, the senior Democrat on the committee, also a veteran. And he just basically got in there with Hegseth's disregard of the laws of war, financial mismanagement, alcohol abuse, sexual assault. I mean, the list goes on. And even said at the end, like, I voted for all of your predecessors, but I won't be voting for you because basically you're utterly lacking. And so it was just a real takedown of Pete Hegseth. Now, that said, he's probably gonna have this job. I guess, Sarah, what are your thoughts on, there is a little bit of a like, we get one, you get one, I feel like, thing happening with all these appointments. It's like, he did get rid of Matt Gaetz, okay. So then, but he's like, but we can't get rid of too many. Like, we gotta have Pete Hegseth. I feel like it's like the pattern that's emerging.
Oh my God. Have you seen his tattoos? Because that's the thing that I don't understand how anybody is overlooking his
I'm Googling right now.
white Christian nationalist tattoos all over his body. And he is such an extremist that people don't even know what's coming. And he is so completely unqualified for this that I don't. At first I was like, okay, so he's nominating someone he saw on TV, fine, but it's not just someone he saw on TV. This is a man who's had 3 wives. He has 7 children. He was. Somebody said he was shouting "Kill all Muslims" in a bar at one point. He is a psychotic human being who is now about to be in charge of the Department of Defense, which has an $860 billion budget. I mean, it's beyond, you want to say it's comical, but it's also like, it's a little terrifying what's going to happen once all these people are actually in, and they can just funnel money to Elon Musk and Trump if they want to, and there will be no pushback. There will be no stopping them. It is wild to me that he's going to get passed, that Republicans are going to say, yes, this is our man, to the Department of Defense. It's absolutely crazy.
Now, if I were the chairman of the committee, I would say, but he's a disruptor, Traci. We've had a lot of guys with experience. What if we just shake things up? What is the term that they use in Silicon Valley? Move fast and break things, or whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So what if he's like that?
I don't know that's. Even if that's what you want for I don't know, agriculture or something. I don't know if that's what you want for defense. Do you know what I mean? It's this is not the department to sort of have someone who's fucking, he's what does this gun do? Hey,
Yeah.
It's just not the vibe. I think maybe transportation, yeah, let's see what happens if we don't have transportation. But this is
God.
and especially because Trump has talked about wanting to really go out there gangbusters in the world, and he's not the vibe for the shakeup, and it's not the place that you want the shaking. I don't think, but also it's just so incomprehensible to me that we're even having to have this conversation. I find, I mean, I do think, okay, this is like a conspiracy, but not a real one, but a little one. Do we think that Trump is just picking people who also have been accused of sexual assault so that his sexual assault doesn't feel so bad? Like when they all get together, it's like, well, I've done it and I've done it. It's like, well, who hasn't done it?
I
Like,
mean,
well,
it's like is that like weirdly a better reason to pick someone than I just saw them on Fox News and they look right for the part? That almost feels like more thought out.
I know. At one point, someone said, "Did you let Trump know about all of these, indiscretions, your marital indiscretions?" And it's like, if he had, Trump would have just been like, cool. Like, he wouldn't have cared, right?
Yeah. You know what's weird to me is that he, in the hearings, he kept talking about, we really need someone that's had, dust on their boots. And because he's really leaning into his experience on the field. But I'm just like, but they've all had dust on their, you're not like the only person that's also served in the military. He made it seem like for a change, we're going to have someone who has anything to do with the military. It's like, no, that's been the deal. Like Lloyd Austin was in the military. What are you talking about?
I will say one thing, though. It seems like he does not want women in combat. And considering the wars that he's probably going to want to fight, glad about that. I don't want to be involved.
Yeah.
But by the way, one of the things that they really did try and clear up for the public record is that they did not change the standards for women to be able to join the infantry. So for that was one of the claims. It's just like, we've, lowered our standards, but the woke mind virus has changed our standards so that women can be deployed. And that's actually not the case. There's one set of standards. Everyone has to do that. And if they can't do that, then they don't get in. Right. That's how it works.
Same for Black soldiers as well. Cause there was also a claim that they were like diluting the military by having Black people involved, which
with some other set of standards. And it's like, no, there's just one there's one standard. That's what it's been. Yeah. So I mean, but this is the kind of thing that's so, to me, infuriating, is because they can really peddle that out, peddle that misinformation of they've been lowering the standards everyone to get in. It's like, what are you talking about? That's not true. So I appreciate all of the lady senators who were trying to correct the record on that. All right.
It's just so ironic. It's the lowered standard is the fact that he's going to be in charge of the Department of Defense. That's the lowered standard.
He's the DEI hire, right?
He's the DEI hire. He's
hired based on gender and race. He's
Completely.
The one. We needed a white guy, ideally one who has a sexual assault charge or two. So whoever we can find who fits the bill, that's the guy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And also to be having this conversation with someone like Senator Hirono, who's served in fucking war and lost limbs. And you're over here women are the worst and they're ruining our military. It's like, babe, she sacrificed just about everything for this country. And you have god-awful tattoos. Sarah, thank you for that tip, because I had not seen those.
I remember the tattoos were a thing in the beginning, and then everybody sort of forgot about them, but they're still there.
Yeah, they're terrifying.
They're
all right,
scary as hell.
Let's quickly talk about the performing at the inauguration, because Carrie Underwood is going to be performing at the inauguration. And my question is, what do you think? She made a statement, right? That it's I love our country and I'm honored to have been asked to sing at the inauguration and to be a small part of this historic event. And she went on to say, I'm humbled to answer the call at a time when we must all come together in the spirit of unity and looking to the future. And look, Trump did not get big names in 2016. Carrie Underwood is some level of a name. What do you think?
I think it's a fumble of the bag for her personally. I think it's a business error. I think it's a unforced error on her part. I don't think she needed to do this. I don't think it helps her, and I certainly think it hurts her with people who wanted to believe she was an apolitical person with a really good voice, But also the rest of the list is the Village People, Kid Rock, and Jason Aldean. I'm just oh, okay, cool.
Well,
go off. Have fun, guys.
Amanda Gorman isn't going to be doing a poem.
Oh, right. I forgot. I'm sorry. Yes. And Amanda.
Sarah, I don't. If you were a Carrie Underwood fan, and maybe you are, would you look at her differently because of this gig?
The vibe in the country right now is so strange because I keep looking at these comment sections where I think people are going to be like, oh, Trump's crazy, but they're not. Like, they're people, I don't know if there's a bots or what's going on, but it very much feels like the country is laying down and saying, okay, this is our life now. And I think that's what it feels like Carrie Underwood's doing. She's like, this is who we are. I mean, I know we're going to talk about Mark Zuckerberg later, but it seems like all of these people are just sort of like, they're holding their finger up, they're seeing which way the wind is going, and then they're just like kind of doing that. And it seems like that's what she's doing. And I think Traci's right in terms of like 20 years from now, how this is going to look, not probably good for her.
I mean, look, Beyonce did perform for a Libyan dictator. People do things that are questionable. And it's, and maybe it follows them around, or maybe in the case of Beyonce, it doesn't follow them around at all. So my feel, it's funny because I thought about this for myself. I am under literally no threat of ever being asked to go to Trump's White House. But I did think, like, in that crazy hypothetical that he wanted a Muslim comedian in the White House, what would I do? And I got to be honest, like, I am like a very deep American patriot. It would be hard for me to go, and it would be very hard for me not to go, right? Because I want to view the institution as just like America. I don't want to connect everything to him. He's not the fucking thing. You know what I mean? The thing is us. We're the thing. The White House is the symbol, and that guy just fucking helps push buttons and, fill in some spreadsheets, but so that the rest of us can keep doing our thing. You know what I mean? He's not the thing. And so
but would you go there, and would you make funny faces? Would you let all of us know that you didn't support this, and so you were there as a supporter?
Yeah, and I think I've spent a career letting everyone know I don't support it. Right?
Yeah, but I don't think it matters what you've spent a career, or anyone has spent a career doing, when you align yourself with someone who it is so.
But that's the question.
Awful.
Are you aligning yourself with someone who's awful, or are you aligning yourself with the United States of America that's having a peaceful transition of power?
Okay, but also the United States is so awful historically. Like, aligning yourself with him.
Look, I'm not talking about. I don't disagree that we have a terrible history, but we also have some really beautiful things that I do believe in. So, like, where does that leave me as like a patriot who can see both, see the beautiful and the ugly?
I think going to an inauguration and performing at the inauguration for this person is a huge political statement. And I think to act as if it's just like, I love this country and that's it, which is what she said, I think that's super disingenuous. I think she knows what's going on here. This is a choice she made. A lot of people obviously did not say yes to it for clearly political or financial or whatever reasons. But I think, I feel very strongly that if I was asked to read a book to Trump in the White House or whatever, I would say no. There's no way.
A bedtime story.
There's no way that I would support any
it would be incredibly
that administration in any way, regardless of my feelings about this country. Like, I feel so strongly about what he has done and what he will do that it would be really, really hard for me to not read anyone's interaction with him as some sort of a support of him.
I think I'm on the fence too, though. Honestly, I don't know.
It's tough because it's like in 2016 it would be like absolutely not, and then this time it's just like it does feel like it's like strangely like we're lying down or we're trying to accept. I don't know. You're right, Sarah. There's like a difference now. And
it's a difference. In 2016, it was completely different. I remember, I don't know. It was just, I was depressed for months.
Yeah.
And this time there's almost a like, I don't want to think about it. I really didn't want to think about Pete Hegseth. And then, I kind of had to. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrifying. But that's why MSNBC's, viewership went down. People are just exhausted.
Yeah.
And social media keeps us on such a quick, turnaround of events where we're just always refreshing.
Yeah.
It's mentally exhausting. And so I
And
think
we
we're
all
just
need to go
exhausted.
to Singapore, I think is what's happening. All right, let's quickly turn to topic number 3. Talk about another gentleman that's just like can be unsavory. Mark Zuckerberg went on the Joe Rogan show, a show that's like the audio version of taking steroids, and he said a lot. But one thing that was noticeable was his views on masculine energy. He said, "quote I think a lot of the corporate world is pretty culturally neutered. Masculine energy is good, and obviously society has plenty of that. But I think corporate culture was really trying to get away from it." And then he went on to say, "I think having a culture that celebrates the aggression a bit more has its own merits that are really positive." Sarah, you're holding your head. I think I immediately gave you a sinus headache, it looks like, by reading that quote. What are you thinking?
He's such a beta. He's such a beta male trying to be an alpha that it's embarrassing. And Joe Rogan, I'm not a fan, whatever, but he can see right through him. And it's so gross to me who he's sort of become, which is weird because I was in tech, early on and saw him at a party once. He's a total nerd. I mean, he's a total nerd geek, like through and through. And the person he's become is just he's out of touch with the world, but he's out of touch with himself. Yeah. Like he has disassociated from himself and doesn't even realize it. And it's just from the outside looking in, I'm kind of shocked at who he's become. I don't know.
What do you think, Traci?
I mean, it's so embarrassing. He's such a loser. I mean, they're all such losers. And I feel like, this whole like loser boys club, which is like Elon Musk and like Mark Zuckerberg and Trump and Joe Rogan and all these guys, it's like, men, we're so tough, but also we're under attack and we're in such danger of being taken over that we have to band together and like talk about being men. And it's just like so pathetic. It's so embarrassing for them. Not that they feel embarrassed because they think that they're like right and smart and they have money or whatever, but I just look at it and I'm like, like it's
and it's also so funny because it's just like the premise is so flawed. Like in that there's nothing about the Fortune 500 that indicates too much feminine energy. You know, yes. Like is feminine energy like in my first job when I would sit in my office and the vegan dudes would walk in and like literally one by one when I first started working there would come in and just be like, I wonder like if someone's gonna sleep with you. Like and they would and like I was like a fun coworker, blah blah blah, so we could have these crazy conversations, but it was uncomfortable that whether or not I would be slept with was like a discussion that was just had openly. You know what I mean?
I also think like it's interesting because when women do sort of like put on the stereotypically masculine energy in the workplace, they're often torn apart for it. I mean, I think about like the things that they said about Hillary Clinton when she was running against Trump and how she was so unlikable and so tough and so this and so that, so stiff and all of these things that we sort of associate with male leaders of like of any, of politicians or whatever. It's like they want this quote unquote masculine energy, but what they're really saying is they don't want women here. Just like Hex said, like they just don't want women. It's not a masculine or feminine energy. It's actually, we want it to be all boys. We want to have our little dick jokes and make uncomfortable conversations. And we don't want anyone to tell us that we can't do that anymore. And that's what it really is. And also just fucking say that then. Like you're Mark Zuckerberg. You have $1 billion. Just say it with your chest.
You can say whatever you want to say. Yeah.
I mean, this is like something that I've been noticing is that these men are just worshiping other men.
Yes.
And they really do like Trump worships Elon worships Trump, like these men. And I noticed it in, I hope no one's offended by this, but the People's Sexiest Man Alive picks, like, I feel like those were chosen by men. I don't think those were chosen by women. I feel like men are saying, this is what a man is. And women are like, can we say what we are attracted to? No, what we actually believe is a man isn't important anymore. It's just men. Oh, even David Dobrik, his new that guy. Negin, do you know him?
Hmm.
Are you frozen?
No, I don't. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Anyway,
Sorry. No.
he spent a year getting a six pack, and they are all just worshiping testosterone
Wait,
in this.
who is David Dobrik?
He's a social media star, I
Oh,
guess.
got you. Okay. Oh, and he's got
Um,
abs now
I
or whatever.
guess.
Okay.
he's got major abs now, and they don't understand that we don't like that, but they don't care about it. This is, I went to this conference, and one of the questions that they asked all of the conference attendees was, who would you like to meet in history, living or dead, and have dinner with? And almost every answer was a man. It was just interesting. All men just worship other men. And I'd never really seen it before, but men are just worshiping each other at this point.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's funny because it's like people always ask me for, comedians that I love and stuff like that. And like it's actually in terms of fame and like a mainstream female comedian that everyone will know their name. They're older than me. It's like a comedian we can all look up to. There are very, very few women, right? And so I'm always like scraping the barrel, trying to think of like, names of that level that I can tell people like follow this person, follow that person. So then I'm always like, well, I follow a lot of female comedians that you don't know who they are yet, and I'm gonna give you their names and you should look them up, and they might not even have albums, whatever,
Yeah.
because there's just like we're a part of that generation that hopefully changing those things. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
But I struggle with this too, just
yeah,
because, men have had more time than us
they've
to
had more time.
develop art.
Yeah.
They've been able to develop art. We women haven't been able to. And so
Yeah.
of course men are more accomplished in certain things, many things, because
Yeah.
they've just
I
been
mean,
able to explore and do those things and be
well,
educated.
Yeah, and also on top of that, they've also been able to poison the well on women, right? Like it's not just that
Yeah.
there's more male comedians, it's also this idea that women aren't funny. Who do you think that came from? Not women, right? Like that they get to the top of these mountain peaks and then they say, I'm the top of the business industry and we need more masculine energy. That's a direct attack on any woman who wants to be at the top of business fields, right? Or in technology or any of these things, in the same way that saying like, I'm in books and they have this whole genre of books called women's literature or women's fiction. And what does that mean? It's about a woman. Like, and it's somehow less than real fiction that's about men. Like it's not just that they've had more time, which you're totally right, and more access and resources, but also once they get there, they decide that what we bring to the table, what women bring, or queer people or trans people or whatever, is not worthy and not good enough, and we need less of that, and that's woke and that's DEI and it is trash, and so it's like this double-edged sort of like not
I
only
mean, I also just feel like it's hard. I mean, I honestly believe that if Mark Zuckerberg were to hang out with the three of us, he's enough of a sponge that we could change. The next Joe Rogan podcast, which would, by the way, be Fake the Nation, would be like, I'm really happy with like that we changed the maternity leave at Facebook. I think it's great, whatever, because I think it's like, it's about exposure, right? And Mark Zuckerberg has spent the last, I don't know how many years doing jujitsu and martial arts with dudes, and talked about in this interview how much he loves hanging out with dudes and watching them beat each other up. Now that's because that's like what it's like you enjoy the thing that you're around, right? And so it's the thing you understand. And so he's just sort of like been putting himself in that situation, even though he's got girls and mom and
well, I think
he
he's
has
also
three daughters.
I think he's also politically
and all that
savvy,
stuff.
and he knows what's going on, and he knows that this is the right language for the incoming administration. I think some of this is
Yeah,
more of a
for sure.
performance for Trump, because like under Obama, he was not
No,
a manly man. He was a wife guy, just like Obama, a wife
That's
guy.
right. That's
Shout
right.
out to
That's
Michelle
right.
not going to the inauguration.
Oh, Michelle is
queen.
my hero. She didn't go to the funeral. She's not going to the inauguration. I mean,
I saw something so funny that was like her book was called Becoming, and now her next memoir is called I Will Not Be Coming.
All right, folks, let me know, what do you think of Mark Zuckerberg's turn talking about masculine energy. All right, my friends, that is the end of the show. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I knew that was going to be a good time. I want for the people of Fake the Nation to be able to follow you and everything that you do. Traci Thomas, where do they do that?
I'm on a million places, but I think the easiest is just at the Stacks Pod on Instagram.
Are you on Blue Sky now as well?
I have a Blue Sky, but I don't actually use it.
I've used it thrice, I believe, and I'm having a hard time getting into any of it. It feels I'm like, as if TikTok closes, then we can all make some decisions. But
I'm off Twitter. I don't really use TikTok. I don't need more. As they're shutting down, I'm like, great. I'm done there.
Yeah, I would like. Honestly, it's a dream. If it shuts down, I would be so happy. Sarah, are you? Where do they find you?
I love TikTok so much. I'm very much hopeful that they don't shut it down. But you can just find me at sarahcpr.com and you'll see everything there.
Find her on her website. Go see her perform live. It's so much fun. Subscribe to the Stacks, folks. You know what to do. And as for me, you know where to find me and all the things that I do, but I just wanted to remind listeners that if you happen to be in the San Francisco area, I'm going to be at SF Sketchfest on January 31st, doing fake TED Talks. So look that up in the San Francisco Sketchfest. It's a really fun time in general. You should check out all the acts. They do a great job. And I wanted to take a moment to point out some of the relief funds for Los Angeles. I'll point you in the direction of the California Fire Foundation Wildfire and Disaster Relief Fund at cafirefoundation.org. But there's so many. Traci has some favorites as well, our local LA person.
I do. So the one that I've been sort of championing for these first few days after the fire is a group called Inclusive Action. They have a fund for outdoor workers in LA. So many people who work in these communities as gardeners, recyclers, outdoor vendors have lost their livelihoods, but are not necessarily sort of the face of these fires, but have lost their ability to work and make money and support their own families and pay their bills. So Inclusive Action is giving out these grants directly to outdoor workers in the LA area. So that's where I would send folks.
Sarah, did you have any that you wanted to throw in the?
The Entertainment Community Fund supports writers and other entertainment people. So those are my colleagues and friends. So it'd be great to support them. I also, think we need to support these prison populations who are actually fighting the fires. I don't have a specific organization.
I do.
For that.
The Anti-Recidivism Coalition. Yeah, the
Amazing.
Anti-Recidivism Coalition here in LA is fantastic. They're supporting these firefighters, these incarcerated firefighters, and just also generally the formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated communities in LA.
Awesome.
Folks, please do what you can. It is going to truly take the entire country to help bolster these efforts. I want to thank everyone who makes the show possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Thanks to everyone at HeadGum. Thanks to Gaby Alter for our theme music. You can email us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to support the show at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.